I wanted to start this video screaming, but people get really upset when I do this, so I'm not gonna scream this time. Anyways, this video is about the undo system, and also, well, if you use Cave, you already know that what I'm doing here is absolutely crazy because I'm actually multi-selecting stuff, and if I press Ctrl Z, it undoes my actions. So this is the best and simplest possible way to resume the entire video. So if you're just here for this, for the updates, this is it. It's over. Undo is implemented in Cave and also multi-select. As you can see, it works. I can duplicate objects. I can batch delete objects. Of course, I can set parents, which is very good. For example, I have all those 4 objects, and then I want them to be a child of this last object that I selected. I can press, I think it's Ctrl P, the shortcut, or Alt P. No, Alt P removes the parent. But if I press Shift P, here we go. They are here. By the way, before you ask, some shortcuts are new, and I do have this list here, and I want to share with you all and all that, so don't worry about this. Most shortcuts here are not new, actually, just the multi-select ones, but it's good for you all to have this list, and I'll share this soon. Anyways, going back here, you can see that parenting works and also multi-select. But now I want to talk about something more complicated. I want to talk about 2 things here. The very first thing is why I'm implementing this now, and what changed in the Cave experience other than you being able to undo stuff and multi-select stuff. Of course, it changes a lot. And last but not least, I will explain a little bit, just if you're like this computer programming or computer graphics or game developer or programmer in general geek, and you really want to know behind the scenes, the challenges and all that I face while implementing something like that. I will talk about this later in this video, okay? First things first, some limitations, because we do have some limitations at the moment. The undo system is only for the manipulation tool. So it's only for the stuff that you do here in the 3D view or the viewport. So it's not going to undo, for example, if I click here and go to the transform and start changing numbers over here or changing components and all that, it's not going to work. And it's also not going to work if I rename something like potato2 or move or create or delete a folder right here. This is not going to work. And before you say, oh no, it's not enough, Unity does something very similar, except that Unity also works in the properties panel. If you change something here, you can undo. But basically, Unity only undo stuff in the scene, and it's for a reason. Undo is very annoying. It's very hard to do, but I figured, oh, the main reason why you probably want to undo stuff is because when you're level designing something and then you position and then you realize, oh, this is really bad, I think I messed up here, so I want to press Ctrl Z and undo just like I just did. So this is why I decided to make this here. And also, it's simpler, it's easier to implement. It still took me a while, and I'll talk about that last, but this is one limitation. And the other limitation I'm still seeing is that the scene graph shortcuts are not entirely integrated with the undo system. So for example, I can select multiple objects here, it works, and it selects here. If I delete those objects, it will also work and reflect this. But if I, for example, move this to be a child of this object, you can see it will not gonna work. And if I really force and drag and drop, it will only parent the child. So this is probably a limitation, right? I'm not sure how I will address this, or if I will address. And the other thing is, if I duplicate this with Shift D, it will only duplicate the one object, not all the objects. So yeah, it's a known limitation. Probably I'll fix this because it's easy to fix, but for now it is a limitation. Now, why I created this? The reason why I've made this is because I'm preparing the terrain. Of course, it's one of the most requested features in Cave of all the time. Every day someone say, hey, please implement Ctrl Z, please implement multi-select, because it's annoying to not have multi-select. Now you have it, and now we can do better level design, of course, as you can see here. Oh, I've duplicated this by accident. Anyways, so it is implemented, it is a very requested feature, but also because I'm preparing the terrain for something better, which is literally the terrain system. Yes! One of the reasons why there was no terrain system is because there was no way to go ahead and paint a terrain. And I'm here with Unreal open because I actually want to show stuff in a moment here, but Unreal, let me change to another scene and wait for it to load, and now wait for my computer to die, and I want, anyways. But you can actually, like right now, I'm in a mode that Unreal calls selection mode, that I can select stuff, but if I go here and change this to, for example, landscape, now all of a sudden I can have this list here and I can sculpt terrain. As you can see, it works. And then I can do something else. I can go to another mode called foliage, and then I can paint foliage here. As you can see here, I can paint this. So this is a different mode. This is because while, for example, I am in the foliage mode, I can no longer select individual objects because it's a different mode. And same for the landscape and all the other ones here. And if I want to go back and select, I need to go to the selection mode, and then I can select individual objects. So this is how Unreal works. Let me save this and wait for a while because Unreal is very slow to do this. And let me go back to a simpler scene so my computer does not die. Anyways, and I needed something. Feels like my computer is really slow, like this screen recording. Anyways, I needed something similar to implement the terrain system and also the geometry paint, which is something that people ask me a lot. For example, let's say that I have a huge scene and you want to put a lot of trees. Right now in Cave, you need to select the trees and place them. Of course, you can press G to make the tree go to the position that you want. Also, you can press Shift G to make it also rotate with the surface, as you can see here, but it's still not ideal. And also can press Alt G. This is another shortcut to duplicate the entity. Very nice. And now Ctrl Z works. Very nice. Yay, as you can see. Anyways, but it's annoying to do this, and it will be great to have like a different mode that I can paint geometry. But to do this, I need to separate things in the viewport, in the 3D view, because selection is one thing, and object manipulation, as I'm doing right now, is one thing, but painting geometry or sculpting a terrain is something else. It's a different thing, and it should really be a different mode to avoid a lot of nightmares. But Cave was not prepared for this yet, because the gizmos things here, they were all hard-coded to the code of the viewport of the 3D view. So now it's no longer like this. It's a different thing. And also you can go ahead here and click Advanced Viewport Settings, and you have an entire new property tab here with the current tool that you have. Also, I've moved things around because one of the things that I had to do to allow this is to separate camera movement to the manipulation movement, because of course, regardless of the tool, for example, in Unreal that I have here, I still want to be able to move the camera around, and this is the same in Cave. So the camera should really belong to the viewport, so I had to do this. So the camera settings are no longer here, they are here in the advanced viewport settings in view. So you can see I can do the same thing that I used to do before. Maybe I will improve this UI now that it's different, but can change the speed, acceleration, and reduction for the camera, sensitivity for the mouse look, all this here I can change. But the difference now is that I have tools here. So you can see I have a current tool. Oh, I just realized that I need to fix this. It's work in progress, as you can see. Anyways, and I only have the manipulation tool at the moment, which allows me to select objects and do all that. And here I have the modes here: move, rotate, and scale. It's the same as these three buttons here on top. So as you can see, they rotate. There's also the shortcut W, I, and R. Very regular stuff. I can do this here. Also, I can have the orientation. For the scale, it's always local, so we cannot have other modes, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But in other modes, you have world space and local space also. This is not new, by the way, just the UI that is new. And I can have the snapping, and this is new. Now I can have individual snapping configurations if I want to snap the movement, the rotation, and the scale, which is very handy. Oh, it's somehow not working, the snapping? Huh. Still work in progress, probably. Let me see. Yeah, it does not seem to be working. But the rotation seems to be working. What about the scale? It is working? Probably the movement is working too. No, it's not. Huh. Very interesting. Work in progress. I'll improve this. I'll fix this in a moment. But anyways, this is why things take time to develop, and this feature is not gonna be live tomorrow. It will still take some time, probably some weeks, until you guys can use it. Now we have the list of selected entities because this is new. So if I select the entities, you can see here there is a list, and also I have this undo thing here that shows all the previous movements. Of course, I need to put a limit on this because right now it will store everything forever, and this will not going to be very efficient. But still, I can undo stuff, and it will undo the list until it's over. Very nice. And the reason why, again, as I've implemented this, is because very soon you will be able to go ahead here and change this tool to something else. For example, the geometry paint, and then you have all the settings here for the geometry that you want to paint. If you want to select a mesh or put some rule or make it align with the surface and all that. So now this will be supported and it will be here. So this is a great move for Cave because it will allow much different tools. And the first one that you see the light of day is the geometry paint, and then the terrain. I'm not sure if the terrain will come to the next release, but this will make it much closer, of course. But then eventually I'll have other modes such as the curve editor, because I want to introduce curves to Cave. I also want to introduce navigation meshes, and you need a different mode to adjust your navigation meshes for the AI agent, so it will be a mode also. In the future, maybe a mesh editor tool, so we can model stuff in Cave, basic modeling. I don't know if this will be useful or not, but well, maybe in the future, but this allows it. Anyways, so this is the part one of this video, and the last part is what are the challenges that I face when implementing something like that. And I'm not going to talk too deep into details, but I want to do some examples of the challenges. The first challenge I will briefly say, because I don't want to go into a lot of details again, is about the undo, because undo is hard to do, very hard, very hard. And there are two main ways to do undo. There's more, of course, but the main ones are two. The first one is, well, every time you do some action before this, save the entire thing to a temp file. And then if you undo, just reload back to the temp file, which is pretty much the same as you save your project. And then if you make a mistake, you go ahead and roll back to the last saved thing. This is probably the easiest, yet the less elegant and efficient way to do it, because it's so easy. We have save and load in Cave already, so it's just save everything and then load it back. But again, it's annoying because you have to load, let's say that you have a giant scene, it will take a lot of space, a disk space or even memory space and all that, and then you have to wait for it to load and to save also every single time you move something, so this is not very efficient. And the other way is to keep track of every action you do and then store the counter action to undo this. In other words, so let's say that I have this object here and I move this object 1 meter forward. Oh, now the snapping is working. Huh. This is weird. And it's not even working correctly. The rotation is very wrong. Anyways, so I've moved this let's say that I moved this 1 meter to this x-axis. The counterpart is, of course, to move it -1 meter to the x-axis. And then you start this in a list, and every time you want to undo something, you just execute the counterpart of this action and it will undo stuff. And this is a very simple way to do it, but it's also hard to maintain. but I decided to go with this in Cave. So if you ever wonder how Cave handles undo at the moment, it's the first time ever the Cave sees this in life. So maybe this will change in the future, but right now it's using this. So all those actions here are the actions that I perform. So, and the engine is storing a counter action to undo this, and it will work. At the moment, there's one limitation. One action cannot be undone, which is deleting an object. If you delete and undo, I just pressed Ctrl Z by the way, you have a failure to undo message here, because I'm not sure how to handle the undo of a deleted object, because I will have to store this object like a copy of it, but then I roll back to the first problem, which is, well, it's annoying to store a bunch of stuff. Maybe it's a very complicated object. In Cave, you can make a mesh, for example, local. This mesh, this cube here, of course, is not local. It's listed here, so this entity probably does not weight a lot in terms of memory, but maybe you are creating a giant mesh here using script and then you delete this. Well, maybe this will waste a lot of memory. So I don't know. Not sure yet how to handle this. So this is why it's not possible to undo deletions at the moment. But this is pretty much how I'm doing. But the most complicated part of the system is not actually the undo, and it is the thing that I'm most excited about to talk, but which is the actual multi-selection. The hard part about making a system like this is not exactly to select objects, because of course if you select, it's basically a list of selected entities. I need to make sure to not directly reference the entity, because maybe the entity gets deleted somewhere else and then I get a crash. But Cave Engine handles that with IDs and all that. So anyways, and there's one thing. If you pay attention here in the properties tab and also in where the gizmo is located, it always goes to the last selected entity, because in Cave, just like in Blender, and I believe in every major other engines or software, I don't know, but I can say for sure in Blender, we do have selected entities, but we also have active selected entities. So out of these entities that I have selected here, only one is active. In Blender, you can see that the color is a bit more brighter than the others, and same here. And this is the active selected. And if I rename this to test or do something like that, it will, the changes will be affecting the active selected entity, not the other ones. Not sure about the, you can see here all the settings here. It's only affecting the active one, not all the ones in batch. And it's the same here in Cave. If I change the tint and all that, just like you saw in Blender, you can see it is only affecting the active selected one. But so this is one thing. And then the next step is to make the gizmos here, the transformation, work. And this was a nightmare, like a real nightmare, really. Because at the beginning, I wanted to do like Blender. If you select an entity, the gizmo will go to the center of these entities. Of course, you can change this to active element, for example, and it will work like Cave at the moment. But I wanted to do like this, medium point, and it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. Not because it's hard to calculate the medium point, the medium rotation, and all that, but for many other reasons that are not very easy to spot. For example, and I'm not gonna go into details because it's just math things, so I'll just kind of move on but show other problems of multi-select. And one of the biggest problems I had when it comes to batch moving stuff here around is, well, moving is trivial and rotating is kind of trivial also. Like this thing here, you are rotating around a center, which is what may not be trivial, but in case of Cave it was easy because Cave had all the functions possible to do this. So it was, oh, I just realized that Blender makes the sphere gets more and more opaque as you keep rotating. Very interesting. I never found this. Anyways, I'm distracted. So it may be trivial to do this, but other stuff are not trivial, and one of them is scaling. Jesus Christ, it is not trivial to scale. And you can see even Blender have problems with scaling, because you can see here, this scale is not looking correct. Well, of course it is looking correct. What do you mean? This is stupid. It does look correct. No, because the correct thing would probably be, let's do Ctrl J, and then I'll set the cursor, set origin to cursor, and then let me scale this. It is still not correct. Why? Maybe because of the center of the object. Go back to this. Well, the thing is, it is very hard to get rotations, scaling of multiple objects wrong. Because if I scale this accordingly, it will shear the object, and you don't want to have shearing in your transformation. So Blender is doing some very weird scaling here. Of course, if I proportionally scale everything, it will kind of work, but if I scale individual axes, it will not gonna work and be very weird. And it's not Blender's fault, it's actually something that Unreal suffers from as well. So if I, Jesus Christ, 3 frames per second, moving works, but the scaling in Unreal, we can see this is what is going on. This is basically scaling individually the objects locally, but it will also take into consideration the distance between the objects, so it will change the distance in an attempt to make this more or less weird, but it is still weird. Like, that object on top is going to a weird direction. I don't want this to happen, but I realize that it is not easy to do this. It's not trivial. So in Cave, I actually solved this in the same way that Unreal does, which is to local scale the objects, except that maybe I should do this, but I'm not scaling the distances between the objects like Unreal is doing in Blender also. But it is not trivial to handle this. It's very complicated to handle this kind of stuff, this kind of operation here of multiple objects. And there's one other problem that this problem in particular, I believe it's the most fascinating problem in the world, which is the fact that engines lie to you when it comes to movement. Because let's say that I have those objects, and all the white objects are parents, are childs of this object here, of the red object, and this is a parent. What happens if I move this object 1 meter up? Well, of course, it moves the child 1 meter up, because this is how parenting works. What happens if I select the child and move them 1 meter up? Well, it moves 1 meter up. I'm actually moving 2 meters, but you get the idea. Anyways, you can see here. But what happens if I select the child and the parent and move them 1 meter or 2 meter up? Well, let's see what happens. Great, you move the child and the parent 2 meters up, right? Wrong. No. It feels like this, but it is not, because the child transform is actually relative to the parent transform. So if I would move the parent and the child 1 meter up, or 2 meters in this case, what would happen is I will move the parent 2 meters, and then the child will also move 2 meters, and this will happen. And this is not what we want. But of course, we selected all these objects and moved this up, so it feels like this is what we want, but in the end, it's not. And this is all these corner cases of multi-select. People don't realize this until you have to implement this. And I like to implement stuff myself. One of the reasons why I like to do everything myself is because you get to admire how complicated some systems are in reality. By the way, I can even prove to you that this object is not actually moving 1 meter up. If I select, Jesus Christ, I'm forgetting how to use Blender. Here we go, the transform here. Because you can see this child transform, the z-axis location is 0, right? And if I move this up, it will still be 0. It's different if I move this 2 meters, you know? So, and also Blender does some weird stuff with the offsets, because this is not really 0, because 0 is this, but it stores the local location of where you parented the, it's complicated. Blender is weird. Anyways, but all the small things that multi-select brings, you never really think about it unless you think about it. And this is so nice, man. So nice. One other thing that I was thinking about, let me actually close Unreal because Unreal really aids my performance here. Is actually what happens, for example, if you select an object that is a child of another object, and then you select another object that has nothing to do with this. If you move this, the transformation that I'm doing here is completely crazy because, again, these two objects here, these two cubes here, are childs of another cube that I'm not even aware of which cube it is. This one here. So those two are childs, but this one is not a child of this cube. So I'm moving things into completely different environments. And for you as the user, you don't see this. And this is crazy. One other example is in Cave. If you press G, it will snap the object here, as you can see. And again, this is a weird calculation. And especially if I hold Shift G to also snap the positions, the rotation, sorry. As you can see, it's very weird to make this work. And also, please notice that I'm not actually rotating the entire thing around as I would if it was like this in order to snap, because this will make things even more complicated. I'm just locally rotating them. But there's a lot of questions regarding this. Is this the right thing? Is this what you want? Maybe yes, no, sometimes, I don't know. So it is kind of funny to think about how difficult a simple thing such as multi-select can be if you really dive into the details, you know. So yeah, I just wanted to make this last part of the video very reflexive and very making off for you to understand how everything is. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So let me actually finish this video with the actual example. This object here is a child of this object. So if I select this object, you can see they are all highlighted, because if I move this object, the child's moves, the children move as well. But if I select the children, it will move individually. What happens if I select the children and the parent? Well, just like in Blender, the children will not going to move twice. It will only move once. And it's not actually moving at all, because I had to write the system to say, well, if I have like a children, if I have a child and a parent selected, let's ignore the child for a moment and just move the parent, because this is how it works. But again, this is not mathematically how it works, because it does not make sense when it comes to math and when it comes to programming. But imagine how weird it will feel if I move this object up, and since I'm selecting the child and the parent, the child goes ahead and moves as well more. You will probably report this tomorrow to me saying, hey, it's not working. But, well, it is working, but this is not how your brain interprets things. So it is complicated. This is the too long don't read of this video, of this part of this video. And I wanted to share because I know that many people follow this channel because they want to create engines and all that. So that's it. Folks, thanks for watching, and I see you in the next video. Bye.